Hi, my name is Cameron Williams and I'm the Impact Evaluation Manager here at Dogs Trust. I'll be presenting to you today alongside my colleague, Dr. Lauren Harris, and we're going to be talking through teaching an old dog new tricks, the use of theory of change for animal welfare. We're going to talk through the theory of change methodology, what it is, what it looks like, and using an example based on one of our sister charities, we're going to talk through the uses of theory of change. Throughout the presentation, we're going to give a nod to dog population management here at Dogs Trust, and that will be talked through the stray dog survey that's been undertaken for nearly 30 years now within the organisation. And if you have any questions as we go through, please feel free to put them in the chat and we'll answer as many as possible come the end. Our work at Dogs Trust, we use the theory of change methodology to help develop our impact measurement frameworks and future data collection tools. A theory of change is a methodological tool, a process, and an output in and of itself. As a tool, the theory of change is a framework to guide thinking and action. As a process, it is an opportunity for stakeholders to collaborate and reflect on their project, where then the output is the map created through this process, which can then be used internally and externally to communicate your vision and how step by step you intend to achieve your proposed impact. Within the development of a theory of change, you establish the inputs, activities, outputs, outcomes, and impact, as shown below. Through backwards mapping, you start at the overall goal you're aiming for and work backward through how exactly you propose that change will happen, what it is you will do to make that happen, and what it is you require to do that. Your impact represents that overall goal at the end, the fundamental change you seek to achieve through your project. Your outcomes are the changes you can measure and observe, happening as indicators that you're moving in the right direction toward your impact. The outputs are the tangible things you produce and that you can count through metrics or measurables. The activities are the things you undertake to make the change happen, and the inputs are the resources required to get those activities off the ground, the expertise, funds, or equipment required, for example. When setting out to develop a theory of change, we must identify the key stakeholders and proposed beneficiaries to consult and involve in this collaborative and reflective process. A range of qualitative research methods such as workshops, interviews or focus groups are then undertaken to engage all relevant parties in dialogue and explore the context of service delivery, the activities undertaken and how these relate to outputs, outcomes, and ultimately to achieving our overarching mission. At Dogs Trust, we use the theory of change method to ensure the work we do is making the meaningful and measurable difference to dogs that we aspire to achieve in all that we do. And that's where the impact evaluation team comes in. The impact evaluation team, through theory of change, helps our teams throughout Dogs Trust and the organisation as a whole to clearly understand and communicate the difference that we make. From a theory of change foundation, we design and implement impact measurement frameworks, develop robust metrics and tools, and support teams across the charity in assessing the outcomes and benefits of projects. Beyond this, through the collaborative work in theory of change, we can identify evidence gaps and strengthen how we collect and interpret data, enabling everyone to tell a clearer story about the impact of their work. In this image to the side of me here, this is the immediate product of a theory of change workshop. I then took this away and wrote it up into a theory of change map with the appropriate reporting based on the team and audience needs. To establish what's required for this, I asked questions such as, who is this for? What's the level of detail that you require? And what do you need those looking at this to take away from it, among other questions. And this allows us to best design what comes of this process from the post-its that you see on the wall that were just developed through conversation of key stakeholders around the table there. Theory of change is a flexible approach. There is not necessarily a one-size-fits-all model. As a team, we have adapted the approach to fit our organisation and stakeholder needs, incorporating aspects like the Spheres of Influence framework, better known for outcomes mapping, and also including elements of logic models. The Spheres of Influence framework helps visualise the stages in the project over which we have influence and those that we do not. The additional concepts you see here through the Spheres model that we have not covered in the theory of change concept so far are the sphere of control. This contains those activities and outputs we mentioned in the theory of change, but emphasizing who is responsible, those things your team directly does or produces, for example, training workshops for veterinarians or creating animal welfare guidelines. The sphere of influence includes our theory of change outcomes. This develops our understanding of the partners and stakeholders whose behaviour we hope to influence, for example, local farmers adopting more humane animal care practices. The key differentiation here from the sphere of control is that in the sphere of influence we cannot directly control what happens here, but we hope to initiate change by building relationships, sharing knowledge, and offering support. The sphere of interest contains our impact, the broader long-term changes we care about, like a national shift in animal welfare culture, for example. You won't likely influence this directly again, but your work contributes to it over time. Beyond this, on the outside of the spheres model, you can see boundary partners. Those are the key actors within the project's sphere of influence whose change in behaviours, relationships and actions with social actors outside the intervention sphere of influence are essential for achieving the intervention's goals and visions, and in whom resources and efforts can be invested into by the intervention to influence and support them. Examples of this include government officials, educators, health workers and youth leaders. Alongside that, causal contribution. This gives the opportunity for you to recognise the fact that multiple factors combine to produce a result. Therefore, an intervention will never be the only reason for changes in boundary partners and social actors. So it allows you to acknowledge the complexity within which projects act and give light to other areas that may have influenced change too. This framework provides an excellent visual example for those of you who want to show where different stakeholders interact with a project. This can be useful in communicating responsibilities and understanding the reasoning behind certain activities and interactions, for example. Now I'll pass over to Lauren, who will talk about our dog population work at Dogs Trust and some of our international partnerships.
Thank you, Cam. I'm going to talk a little bit about the work Dogs Trust does in the field of dog population management. So Dogs Trust primarily operates in the UK, where dog population management isn't really a key priority. Our annual stray dog survey has been administered to UK local authorities every year since 1997, and it asks them to tell us how many dogs they've handled each year. Bear in mind, these are mostly lost or sometimes abandoned pet dogs, many of whom are eventually reunited with their owners. So it's a pretty different situation from the free-roaming dog populations you see in other parts of the world. The numbers of dogs handled by local authorities has undergone a substantial decrease overall, with a few bumps along the way, if you look at the chart. Interestingly though, in the last few years, the numbers have started to rise again. So although currently we do not have any interventions planned in the dog population management space in the UK, if it continues to rise, we may be considering something like that in the future. For example, something that we did find in the stray dog survey is that lots of dogs have incorrect owner contact details on their microchips, which hindered them being reunited with their owners. In the past, we've run check your chip campaigns, which encourage owners to keep their pets' chips up to date. So that might be something we could focus on again in the future. Another aspect of our work which focuses on dog population management is in our collaborations with organisations internationally. We've partnered with organisations around the globe, many of which involve dog population management projects. There's a few examples on the right there, but there are many more. We've collaborated with these organisations in different ways and at different levels, from providing grant funding to assisting with practical aspects of the projects. For example, our research team has helped with monitoring and evaluation for some of these, and has collaborated on writing academic papers to be published. There's also been opportunities for Dogs Trust staff to volunteer abroad to assist with some of these projects. We've decided to use one of these as an example to demonstrate the theory of change model. So the example we're going to use is Mission Rabies' Cambodia campaign. Mission Rabies is a project run by Worldwide Veterinary Service, which is a subsidiary charity of Dogs Trust since 2023. It's an international project which aims to eliminate rabies in multiple countries around the world. Mission Rabies in Cambodia is a collaboration of government officials and international NGOs working together towards the goal of no human rabies deaths in Cambodia. A major part of the project is mass dog vaccination drives, which involves huge numbers of volunteers, including some Dogs Trust staff, In fact, if you look at the photo here of one of these volunteers, you may recognise my co-speaker, Cam. So Cam is going to tell you a bit more about the project in Cambodia on the next slide, where he's going to run through an example of a theory of change for this project.
Thank you, Lauren. As you can see before us, we have a simplified version of the theory of change for the Mission Rabies Cambodia project. This is created based on information on the Mission Rabies Cambodia website as a demonstration and not a representation of any work created collaboratively. We chose this example to display the uses of a theory of change model and to shout out the positive work of a Dogs Trust sister charity that we believe could share commonalities with some of our ICAM audience today. As aforementioned, you can see here the theory of change is not a one-size-fits-all. We have overlaid the theory of change on a spheres of influence model as described earlier, and we have not included assumptions or external factors as those familiar with theory of change may expect to see. As you can see, the impact here is no human rabies deaths in Cambodia, but this all begins at the beginning of our inputs through staff, equipment, vehicles, premises and consumables. And we can trace those inputs through to our activities, outputs and outcomes as we've aligned our outcomes here with those that are related through what we call an impact pathways exercise. And this just adds reasoning behind why one thing leads to the next and acts as a really good communication tool and to develop the understanding of how projects work. You can see therefore how this model exists as an excellent internal sharing opportunity, getting those stakeholders together and aligning their tasks and responsibilities with the bigger picture impact of the organisation, how it all feeds together. Whilst presenting this to external stakeholders too, can be those boundary partners we mentioned or even potential funders, you can show your vision for how you will achieve the impact through your collaboration and encouraging greater understanding and buy-in to your project, taking more people with you on this journey. As you can see here, we have short, mid and long-term outcomes, and the timeframes for these will depend on your project or organisational goal. However this is decided or defined, that depends on you. The theory of change is a living document and must be revisited and interrogated as time goes on and understanding develops. Their impact pathways, as we have aforementioned, will change over time, but they're a useful touch point to ensure all key project stakeholders remain on the same page throughout the project. And if project understandings change, reflect on this in any updates of the theory of change and ensure there's a shared understanding as to the divergence. And this keeps it as a really important project communication tool, be it internally or externally. So what's the next steps when you've created your theory of change? Well, you can use it to guide your strategy and program design, aligning your activities with the resources required and how those all work together to get you to intended outcomes and the impact afterwards. Using this pathway method, you can refine or redesign your interventions as needed. The theory of change can support monitoring, evaluation and learning, establishing indicators and tracking your progress and adapting based on what works for you or for your animals. You can use the theory of change to have that conversation that identifies the metrics that will lead to the best understanding of how your project's progressing. You can enhance your communication and storytelling, clearly articulating your impact pathways to funders, partners, supporters, and those working internally toward your goals. You can strengthen internal alignment, as I alluded to, ensuring staff, volunteers, and stakeholders share a unified vision and direction. You can inform funding and advocacy efforts, using your theory of change to build a compelling, evidence-based proposal to influence both fundraising efforts, but also policy at a greater scale to allow for greater impact. And with that, we come to the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for listening. If you would like to get in touch, we have the research inbox, research@dogstrust.org.uk, or if you would like to contact Lauren or myself directly based on anything we've said today for more information, please feel free to reach out to us via our emails on screen now. We have a Twitter account and also a link tree if you would like to scan this QR code here, which will show you all of our research across different areas within the organisation of Dogs Trust. We also put here the Mission Rabies website too, if you'd like any more information on the example used for our theory of change today. So if you have any questions, I hope if you haven't already shared them in the questions box today provided, please feel free to share them now, and I'd be more than happy to answer them as we go forward. And thank you so much, as ever, for ICAM for having us. Thanks.